All right, so today I'm going to dive into the low voltage side of heat pump wiring. And before I really get too deep in it, I want to address one issue that a lot of people sometimes struggle with when they first start diving into this. And that is with the terminals on these heat pump thermostats themselves. Now, I want to focus in on three in particular. You have an O terminal here, you have a B terminal, and a C terminal. Now, the O terminal, that is for your reversing valve. That is the 24 volt signal that's sent out to the reversing valve in the condensing unit outside that activates the heat pump system into cooling mode. The B terminal is also for your reversing valve, but that activates heating mode. It will change the reversing valve into a heating position, and your C is your common. Now, I'm going to go over all these terminals again later in the video, but I want to focus on these three because this kind of makes sense, right? One for cooling, B for heating, and then you have your C for common. But then the problem is you run into something like this. Now, this is a different type of heat pump thermostat, and you'll notice you have a combined OB terminal here and a separate C terminal. Now you're thinking, okay, well, if O is for cooling and B is for heating, how can they be combined on one terminal? Now you're starting to ask questions and you're getting a little confused. And then you see something like this. Now you see here we have a combined B and C terminal and a separate O terminal. And now you're thinking, wait a minute, if B is for heating and C is common, how can heating and common be the same terminal? Reversing valves, they actually have like a default position. So they might default in heating or they might default in cooling mode. Basically what that means is you only need one wire coming in to activate the reversing valve. When that 24 volts is removed, the valve will default back into its fail position. So if you have a reversing valve that defaults in heating mode, all right, you don't need 24 volt signal to the reversing valve to have this reversing valve in the heating position. You only need 24 volts to slide it over into cooling mode. Now, different brands choose what their default is. So here are a couple of brands that actually default into cooling mode. Rheem, Rudd, Weathermaker, Ameristar, Bosch. These systems have reversing valves in them that will always be in cooling position whenever there is not 24 volts being sent out there. Most other brands are the opposite. They will default into heating mode. So you don't need 24 volts to be sent out to the unit in heating mode. You only need it in cooling mode. So this is why we now have thermostats that have a combined OB terminal, is because the thermostat only needs to send out one signal, and it doesn't matter if it's for heating or cooling, it's going to be on the same wire. So when we send 24 volts out, the reversing valve moves into one position, and when we take that 24 volts away, it defaults back into the opposite position. The only thing we need to know about these particular thermostats that have a combined OB terminal on them is that it kind of makes them universal with different brands. So you might have one brand that defaults into cooling, the other brand defaults into heating, and you can use this same thermostat for either one. The difference is that these types of thermostats, they will have a setting that you actually have to go into to tell the thermostat which type of system you have. So if you set the position in settings to O, what you're telling the thermostat is that it needs to send a 24 volt signal out for cooling and not for heating. And if you set it to B, you're telling it the opposite. You're telling it has to send a 24 volt signal out for heating and not for cooling. So now all we got left is this thermostat here with our combined BC terminal and a separate O terminal. Now this is a Trane thermostat. This is pretty typical of Trane. This thermostat is basically the same arrangement as the last type of thermostats I went over. Trane uses O as a signal for cooling, and it defaults into heating mode, so we don't need to send 24 volts out on heating. What this B is, it's not for the reversing valve. It's actually a common, and that's why B and C are combined together. If you ever opened up a Trane air handler and looked inside, you might not see a common terminal. You might just see B. So that's what this is telling you here, is that this is your common on the thermostat. It matches up with the B inside the Trane air handler, and that's it. It's just a common wire. It's not for heating at all. So hopefully that, guys, helped clear a few things up for you. In my next video, we're going to start jumping into the full low voltage wiring throughout the whole heat pump system. I'll get a little bit into schematics, so we'll pump out a few videos on heat pumps, and then maybe we'll get into combi boilers or something else. You guys let me know. I know there's already a few of you out there that want it, so maybe that'll be next. But we'll get through this, and good luck to you guys out there. Thanks for watching.